Am I doing part 2 start again? I feel like this is becoming a theme, Amy, where I do the beginning and then you just sort of chip in.
You're like the face of everything. I'm like the organisation behind.
Is that why we're not successful? Because I'm the face?
It says we're not successful.
I'm joking.
I'm like the organiser, and you know.
You are, and we are thriving. I think we're up to nearly 250 followers, maybe over.
I mean, steady on. We're going to be classified as influencers.
I think I might
soon.
actually be one of them.
Well, I should hope so.
We should point out that if you've not seen part 1, you won't know who that is, but it's Jeremy from Udder, who we've done a great opening part 1 episode with just now.
I feel like we've learned so much already and been so inspired already.
Yeah, if you're wanting to find out about someone and their background, take away the business aspect and just ask them about them personally and what motivates them. Jeremy has just described his story and where he's led us up to, which is Udder. And if you've not heard of Udder, it's a very interesting name. It's like, how have you not heard of Udder? Like, we're going to dive into what Udder do, what Jeremy does, is a little bit on the work that he's done previously, and really just go through a hints and tips, like best practice. If you're in TA and recruitment and you're considering a new solution, considering an implementation, and maybe you've not done it before, it might be good to avoid some of the pitfalls that certainly Jeremy's seen. And that part of the episode today is really focusing on the best practice and hints and tips with Jeremy. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you back.
The Udder story, very quickly, is the name comes from Alan, who was my business partner, sat watching television one night thinking of a name for his company as it was before, and an Ambrosia advert came on the telly, and right at the end it focuses on a set of udders on the screen, and that is where the name Udder comes from. No science. We didn't pay any marketing company for that.
It's so random though. But if you've ever gone to Wreckfest, you'd see the cow print walking around as well.
Yeah,
like...
that's not us though. That's Hacker Job that bring those. But we get free.
Some of your team.
Oh yeah, but they nick them from Hacker Job.
Oh, do they? Right. Okay.
Oh, I love that. We've had other kind of founders and stuff on where they've said, yeah, there's like true meaning behind the name.
Yeah, the name means a lot.
You've got it from
Ambrosia. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So give us a little bit of a snapshot into the work that Udder do, your clientele, your experience.
Sure.
Who are you?
Who are we? Well, I mean, first and foremost, we've been going about 4 years. We set the business up 2019 December, and we kind of said, let's look at HR technology, and we didn't really know what it was we wanted to do. So we just started doing things, and I think sometimes as a founder, you almost prescribe too much what it is you're looking to do, and you have to. People go, we pivoted. Every day in those first 6 months was a pivot for us. It was like, okay, we need to do that. We need to look at that. But where it's got us to is really a focus where we go, okay, we're an HR technology consulting business. We help companies to think and to do, and we do that both sides of the HR tech fence. So we do work with solutions providers, and I call them solution providers for a reason. I'll go into that in a minute. But rather than vendors, it does. Rather than vendors, it's a positive thing. Where we help them think about their product roadmap, and we also around research that we do for them, and the market and the competitive market they're in, and help them realise more about what that looks like. But we also then do a lot of work where we implement solution providers' technology for them, where they may be looking and going, okay, we don't want to grow the team too much, or we want to have a fallback if there's too much work comes in, or in some cases where a company goes, do you know what, we actually want to take the implementation team out because we want to be a SaaS offering, and that's better for valuations. So there's a reason behind that. But so we get involved on that side. But I think really what's growing the business at the moment and pushing the business at the moment is the HR side of things, where we go in as it depends on where we've been invited or where we get introduced to the HR team. Sometimes, that can be right at the beginning of their journey. So it might be we sense there's a problem, and this is the HR leader or TA leader. We sense there's a problem with our tech, with our process, whatever it might be. We need some external help to identify what that problem is, because sometimes as a TA leader, you're so focused on what you're doing and how you're doing that you can't actually see the wood for the trees. And actually, I was the worst of this when I was in TA in-house, going, I don't need external help. I know what I'm doing. But actually,
was that an ego thing?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And also because some of the bigger consulting firms would stick in a 2-year out of university graduate with no experience to tell me how to do my job. We'll go into that in a second again. But
I'm interested.
Oh, yeah.
Experience doesn't mean that you don't have experience.
It doesn't. No. But at the same time, where we're really winning businesses, we're putting people into the consulting work that have domain experience. And our implementation team all has TA or people domain experience, as well as being super geeky on technology. So that's I think that's probably where it comes from, rather than an idea or potential for to push you in a direction or help you go in a direction. It's more the understanding the problem from a real point of view, from a point of view that you've lived it, essentially.
I think it's important though, like even from being in implementation myself, I think it's just important that you understand the pains of if a recruiter or someone from the implementation team we have to have it this way or we need to use it that way. If you don't understand the why of that because you haven't been in the TA world or you haven't done it, I don't know, I just think being in the industry really does help.
Yeah. But
selling,
also
implementing, I don't know, advising, whatever. But
also so many people build in technology to cover an existing process rather than challenge the process.
Yeah.
How many times do we see an implementation where it's like, oh, this is what we want to do. Why do you want to do it that way? Well, it's just what we do. We want to use tech to change it and evolve it, right?
It's really interesting because one of the things we say to people is the first thing you have to do before you even go to look at the market for technology is look at your internal processes. Because if your internal processes are not delivering what they're supposed to deliver to the business, all you're going to do is deliver shit processes more quickly or a shit outcome more quickly. I'm allowed to say that word, am I?
You can,
yeah,
yes.
You can. Yeah,
yes,
just wanted to check.
We're an explicit podcast.
We'll have to mark you as...
He's one of those.
But all right, I'll use the word broken. So if you've got a broken process...
Too late now,
Too
Jeremy.
late, yeah. If you've got a broken process and you bring in automation, technology, whatever it is to make that process more efficient, literally all you're doing is getting to that point of bad decision quicker. Mm-hmm. So therefore potentially putting a poor employee into the business quicker. So it really is about understanding the process. Now, to your point, David, technology can actually sometimes solve that process change because the solution providers we work with often have done, they've sold to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, however many customers it is, and they've seen a lot of the problems that you as an HR leader, TA leader are facing, and they've already solved them with or alongside or for other companies. So actually don't assume that you have to go, well, how do we design that process? Because the technology may well actually help you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I don't know, maybe this is not a great question, but how do you identify, though, that you've got a broken process?
That's a great question, Amy.
Because sometimes we speak to people and they're like, yeah, well, we need to see sourcing, reporting, and everything is like the same.
But it's got to be around data.
Process, like the same issues.
Yeah, I think you can have a feel that it's broken by looking up for TA, looking on Glassdoor at the feedback around the poor experience that candidates have had. But actually, if you've got data is the king here, isn't it? You can look at bottlenecks where, I don't know, where when a hiring manager review, suddenly the number of women in a process goes from 50% to 5%. That's the sort of thing that data is really key to look at to understand where the process is broken. And we'll go back to the DVSA stuff. It was around exactly that, where they were interviewing, so they were advertising the driving examiner jobs twice a year for 10 days, and the rest of the year it was word of mouth in the driving test centres. The only people who were qualified to become driving examiners were driving instructors, and 87.5% of them at the time were white male. So what's going to happen when that's where 90% of your advertising time is going? It's that sort of data that identifies where the bottlenecks or the problems are in your process.
So do you do like an assessment of several different things to identify that bottleneck? You're just looking at data sets, and then out the back of that's helping you then devise your strategy where you make certain changes. So what did you do there? Because you talked previously about the volume of men compared to women in that situation. Where did you get to, and what did you do to resolve it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was bigger than one thing. That's the key thing there. There was that advertising issue. There was the fact that every driving examiner had to do 37.5 hours a week, whereas actually, do you know what? If you don't need to be, because you examine, you do an exam as a driving examiner, and then actually the next person who gets in the car with you, it doesn't really matter whether it's you or one of your colleagues, so you could almost say, to make it more accessible to females, why don't we have 5 slots a week where we have 4 hours during the day, where that's the job. So it was looking at the job structure and the those sorts of things as well. But again, that was data. I think at the time there was something like it was a 6-week SLA from applying for a test to getting a test. And at the time, they were running at like 11, 12, so twice SLA. And the worst places were 3 times, so 19 weeks. And a lot of it was quite easily solvable around actually how they structured the times, the contracts, if you like, to make them more accessible to people who wanted to work part-time.
Okay. So where do people begin then when they're looking at the data sets? Like, where do you begin? Let's just say I come to you and I've got several issues, which I do have several issues.
Let's not go into that.
That was for part 1 when we record it with you, yeah?
That's going to be series never that we go into that.
Mental health and well-being, Amy.
It was all because you were born in Bournemouth, so
yes.
Yeah, you told us that already.
First rule about
Okay, let's not go through.
But let's just say, you've got a new client that comes on board. They found a solution provider. Let's just say that one of the main ATSs in the marketplace. Where does Udder begin? Where do you start? Tell us best practice tips. Go.
I think it goes way back before that. There's a lot of work that you have to do before you even go to market. Before you even start looking at who might be a potential solution provider. Just on that, it's the mindset as well. So if you're talking about vendors, you're talking about someone who's selling something to you. If you talk about solution providers, you're talking about someone who is solving the problem. In the words, they're providing a solution to your problem. And I know it's a slightly...
That's deep.
I know it's quite deep. But
I think we should we're solution providers.
We are solution providers.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but like
your title is solution consultant.
I know, but I'm going to be a solution provider now. I'm going to change my title on LinkedIn.
Provider of solutions.
If you have that mindset when you first go into this, that you're looking for someone to solve a problem, because the first thing you have to do, of course, is find out what the problem is you're looking to solve. So it's amazing the number of times we go into something where someone has already gone to market and they've done hundreds of demos, and they're literally our first client. That was why she came to us, because she had done over 100 demos of different. They were looking at 100 demos. They were looking at an HR backbone, so ATS, HRIS, LMS, for a 290 person company.
Gosh, imagine if you were the solution.
Who was this person?
Imagine if you were the solution provider and you did the 100th demo.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, she was, but the thing was, she was no wiser, and it wasn't because she hadn't seen the right products in there. It was that she didn't know what she was trying to solve, the problem she was trying to solve. And the really important thing to do is to, once you've identified, and it might be 4 problems that you're trying to solve. Write them down and get any stakeholders that are involved in the process, be that users, hiring managers, the budget holder, IT, finance, because they're all important stakeholders along the way. Get them all to sign up to that solution statement, that problem statement, because otherwise they don't. You get halfway down the road and IT go, well, the problem we've got here is that it doesn't have single sign-on.
You're so right. You're so right, because when Lindsay at Green King came on the show, she talked about building a community in order to get sign-off.
Yeah.
And the army of voices that were needed.
Yeah.
And the reason that TA don't always have that strategic seat at the table is that they're not always leveraging all these angles that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing the number of times we go into places and they start going, well, we don't really want to tell IT that we're doing this, because they might stop us.
They might block it.
And they might block it, and they might go, and they might slow it down, because they might go, well, what's it going to what's the impact on our time as IT? Are we going to have to support this? Is it going to have to be on the estate somewhere? And they're still going to ask those questions when you've made your decision 3 months down the road, and they're still going to block it. So you might as well find out if they're going to block it before you do all the work. So I think it's really, really key to have those conversations as early as possible. And we're talking about team now. That's the project team, because that's the people who will be involved at some point in time throughout the process. Users are often forgotten. We see a lot of TA leaders who come in and go, well, I remember what it was like to use an ATS or something, and actually they don't. They've become too strategic, and they then go to their users, the talent partners, the talent administrators, these sorts of roles, and they say, oh, we've bought you a new ATS. And in terms of change management, which needs to start then, right the way back, not when you've already made your decision. Change management should be starting when you're talking to those people about the fact that you're going to buy a new ATS, not further down the road. So, but the users, if they may go onto the ATS and go, great, this is great, it's better than the spreadsheets we had, or that old ATS that was hasn't been updated for 20 years. But they might also go, who asked me about this? It doesn't do what I want it. I'm the one who's sitting here in the system every day, day in, day out, using it.
And it's been imposed on you.
It's been imposed on me. And actually, I don't actually think it supports my job. It doesn't do what it needs to do.
We say this a lot, don't we? Like when we meet with people or whatever, and then you've got like a group of people that are coming to assess our solution.
Yes.
We're like, yeah, but where are the people that are actually going to be using it?
Head of TA makes one decision, and the end users are like, not for me.
Yeah.
It's very true.
I think going right the way back to your question about what's the first thing you do, actually before any of that, and maybe after the solution statement, probably is after the solution statement, we actually then flip it back to the TA leader and say, so your solution statement says X, Y, Z. Have you asked the incumbent provider if they do all of that? And it's amazing the number of times where that happens, where they go, actually, we do all of that. And do you know what? You have all of that inventory available. You're just not using it. Now, there's an argument that says that the CSM should, or account manager, whatever's in that solution provider's structure, should be going to the client proactively and saying, look, you're not using this, because that makes them stickier anyway.
Yep.
And it makes them less likely to be swearing about the product and saying it doesn't work. But I think that's really, really important. But similarly, if you get to that point and you go, we didn't know we had all that, there's also then and this is going to be deep again, sorry. There's a psychological contract that has been broken, and that can be too far broken. So we're working with a company out in the States at the moment, and they did exactly that. And we came in quite late to the process, and they were really talking in the demos about, well, doesn't our current company do that? And the current company was involved in the pitches, in the demos, and they said, yeah, we do that, and you've got it. And we do that, and you've got it. And it was amazing the number of times that was said during those demos. But we then talked afterwards about the psychological contract, and the recruitment teams, the users, the actual day-to-day users, were so pissed off with this system that it just wasn't ever going to be brought back. And actually, at that point, it is okay. That's too big a gap for us to. That's too big a bridge for us to build. Let's look outside at the market, and that's what they've done. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to remember. Don't just bin your tech and your existing tech until you've made sure it works.
Having people from like recruiters in the implementation also works too, because I know again from experience that I've done with implementing, if there's been certain recruiters, they're almost out for themselves and they'll want the system to work the way or to be configured the way that they want it to be configured, not necessarily for everyone. So is it kind of you continue that or bring them along the whole journey? Or
the way we work when we go in is we look at we go way back again before the implementation. The key is to have every stakeholder group. It doesn't have to be every stakeholder group represented. So if we've gone in and we say, okay, well, we'll have recruiters on it, and they've got a team of, let's say, 30 recruiters. You don't want 30 recruiters on that demo, because the demo would be 7 hours long. Ever. And the caveat to that is you have to have got their buy-in before that. So we do a number of workshops where we might not even do all 30, but we will have a representative group. And that representative group has to include has to come from the TA leader. It has to include your champions, but it also has to include those people who are going to be the blockers, because those are the people that you need to get through that journey. The champions are going to champion the cause, but it's the blockers, the people who are going to be negative about the tech before it's even been used or implemented, that you have to take on that journey. And it's getting those workshops in place so that they get a voice early on.
Who are the stereotypical blockers in your opinion?
I don't think there is a stereotype. I really don't. I've seen blockers in non-TA roles. I've seen blockers in TA roles. I've seen senior leadership TA blockers. I've seen admin level blockers. And I think it's not a role, a type. It's someone who fears for the impact, which is really current at the moment with AI. Someone fears the impact on their job and that it's going to have a negative effect on their job, which is why you have to involve them from the earliest outset.
And is that how you unblock them? By just giving them a voice?
It's understanding what it is they're saying. So it's not just a voice. You've got to listen as well. You've got to show that you have understood what their fears are, because it is fear. It's whether you think it's rational or irrational really doesn't matter. It's their fear, and you have to understand what that fear is and overcome it. The DVSA piece, there was a mid-level civil servant who had no part in the decision-making process, and after the tech had come in place, he was then given the role of helping to implement it, and it took forever. I'd come off the project at this point. He just took forever because he hadn't bought into the change and the impact it was going to have on his job going forwards. So and that wasn't part of my role, but the change management team should have done that and found out what was his fear, because he was a major blocker to the success of the product when it was implemented.
We see that a lot as well, and one of the pitfalls people do go into is the people that run the projects don't always implement the projects, and then suddenly what actually happens in that process is it's a new blueprint that's being built, and it's like, well, this wasn't discussed in the demos, and then suddenly another product launches that no end user has actually agreed to in the first instance. It's someone else's vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's happening all the time.
Absolutely. Whilst we're on implementation teams, so and the team that are doing it, it's something we see a lot of. You go through this process of defining what your solution, what your problem is that you're solving, and then you go to market and you look at your market intel and you go, there's a long list. Take it to a short list through an RFP or whatever process you take, and then you decide on your product. Okay, and you get to that point where you go, okay, we're going to have this ATS, this HRS, whatever the product is. And you say, right, now who in the company is going to implement this? Okay, so you've got to that point without even thinking about that. That should be one of the first things you do for all sorts of reasons, because you know most people in the business who are doing that, unless you bring in or unless you've got a specialist HR project manager or HR implementation team, because you're big enough to do that, they're doing that role alongside a day job. And in recruitment particularly, if that day job gets busy, guess what goes? It's not the day job. So suddenly you're scrabbling around for someone to do it. So you have to think about that resource plan as early as possible, and that's before you've gone to market. And the reason it's before you've gone to market is you look at it and you go, okay, we don't have the resource to do the project management. We don't have the skills to do the configuration. We don't have this all the time, whatever it might be. So we need to build that into the budget. And if you don't build it into the budget at the beginning, you get to that point where you've had the budget signed off for the purchase of the licenses and the implementation costs from the solution provider, and suddenly you're going back to the business and saying, by the way, we need another 100,000 for our side. We didn't think about that. If you do that right the way back, and that slows down everything. That slows down your implementation, your go live. You lose the momentum that you've got from the change management process. And then you could have done all that if you'd have spent a little bit of time right at the beginning planning what that looked like, what that implementation looked like.
It's so true, because implementation is often one of the last conversations you have.
It is.
It's like everything's about the tech, isn't it? And it doesn't.
We laugh a lot. No, laugh's too strong. No,
it's not a funny matter, Jeremy.
No, laugh is not too strong a word. We kind of go. We kind of slap our heads and things like that and go exasperation when we come in. We've come into an implementation late, and we've been asked to support the client, the buyer, and they say to us, well, we didn't. The solution provider told us this was going to take 8 weeks. We say, but that's 8 weeks from their perspective, and that's assuming that you do everything that you need to do to configure the system, or to whatever it might be, or to bring the relevant stakeholders in to do. It takes time on the client side. It can often be 10, 20 times as much as the time taken on the solution provider side. But it's really, really important that you get that understanding really early. And I would say probably we've done probably 20 implementations this year where we've been brought in mid-flow and we've had to pick up the pieces.
That must be really hard.
It's not the easiest. it's obviously the easiest way for us is if we come in right at the beginning of the whole process, and and that's where our most successful projects have been, where we've guided the TA leader from the get-go, from the discovery around what they want to achieve to the art of the possible with tech and the market intel, and going all the way through and supporting them, or being the SME during an RFP and the negotiations afterwards, and then into the implementation. It's by far the best way for us to work. But we get not everyone has the budget or the inclination to do that sort of thing. But if it's not that, it is that point where solution provider goes, okay, we're kicking off today, and we're in on that meeting. And that's if we're doing just implementation, that's almost a minimum we need. We need to be there on day one of the kickoff and to go through. Otherwise, like you say, you come in and you're kind of scrabbling around trying to find out what's been done, what hasn't been, what's left in the project, and then the client is going, well, we need a project plan. And he's kind of like, well, I can't really deliver a project plan yet because I don't actually know what in the project has been done, and it really is difficult from that perspective. But that's the firefighting piece that we do. It's not our preferred work, but it is definitely work that we will do. And we've had several. Well, every one of those has been a successful implementation ultimately. Where we've taken them on board. And again, it comes down to I'm not sure you could do that with someone who didn't understand the domain. I think that really helps with our team being able to go in and very quickly get the understanding of what's going on in the team, what's going on in the business, and then look at the project. But it is much easier when you come in on day one.
Well, unbelievably, we have gone through time.
Wow.
Again, we've overrun. But I think from my perspective, and perhaps I've got a little bit of bias because I know Udder, I know Jeremy, know the team, and I've seen their work and worked with some of the team members there, and I can vouch for them. But listening to you and talking about some of the pitfalls that people fall into, I think you can learn from this episode about what to avoid. Like, get people talking earlier, get the implementation discussed early, get the people who are going to implement involved. Stop leaving it the reverse order. I'm going to go to a vendor, be pitched, be sold to, don't know necessarily how that's going to resolve my issue, but then right at the end, I'll get all the blockers involved that I've not engaged at the beginning. So I think a lot of people can take something away, and you know, we would gladly promote Udder as a great consultancy business and implementation team. We've seen successful implementations. They're a great team that we can 100%. Both vouch for. Yeah,
it's good. It's good recruitment processes. Evidently, that's what we tell ourselves, me and Alan.
Well,
and you know, we know what we want.
We say it all the time as well. It's not just technology. Technology's not going to fix everything for you. You need to good processes.
Conclude your episode, Amy, with the question.
Uh-oh.
It's a good question.
It's time to go.
we need to in a minute. We'll be booted out. We've literally got a 1 minute answer you're allowed.
Okay, so imagine you have a magic wand. You could cast it. You have one spell, one wish to make a change, go back and kind of redo something, whatever it may be within TA, implementation, whatever. What would you do?
Wow. It's a difficult one. There's so many answers to that.
You're allowed one, and it's a minute.
I don't know. It's probably to install in every TA leader's heads the words of, and I'm gonna say who said them. Nick Thompson, ex IBM, who's now at Halo, I think they are. Who the other day, Halio, yeah. He said, "Why would you not outsource something like this that we don't do as a day job?" And that's the thing. The market is so big. There's 25,000 products out there in the HR tech market. You know, we're in that every day. We're researching it. We're marketing it. You know, why would you make your team do something else that they're not trained to do? I.e., the implementation piece. That, you know, they can be experts in the process and things, but actually the whole configuration piece. And so I think it is just actually going back and saying, do we really need to, have we really got the resource internally, and making the TA leaders challenge themselves realistically about the ability of the team and the resource and the timing alongside a day job to do a good implementation.
Good answer.
I like that.
Bing.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I've really enjoyed listening to it. I think there's a lot of concepts that people might not be considering that they can learn from. So
we've only touched the surface, honestly.
We'll have you back on.
Brilliant. Love to come back on. It's been great. And I can go back to number 40.
Shout out.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much as well.